this is an interesting video to make of my progress, and that's why I'm making it a devlog instead of a Godot 4 tips. I finally figured out how to instance things. So before we do new game, I'll go ahead and do remote. These are what I'm instancing. Towns can now send out a convoy to another town. It's at its base, that's all it does, and then it returns to its hometown. I'm setting up the base for everything. The one thing is the town lights controller. New game, and this is going to fill out with all of these. These are all instanced. So you should have, all of these are instanced. Now, originally I could never, ever figure out how to do this. And Safari is going to the blanks. Where the heck is the blanks? So Safari, this is the other thing. Safari, we'll skip to this real quick. Safari is heading over to the blanks. They're going to, once they get there, they're going to disappear. But they're either 140, I think they're 145 here. Instance number right there. And then 10 to 20 seconds later, they're going to head back to where they originally came from, Safari, because they've done whatever convoy or whatever. And of course, this is the basics of everything I'm trying to figure out. So it reached the blanks, and right there, heading back home to Safari. So they are overriding each other's trails because player movement is on layer 1, map is on layer 0. All of their movement is on layer 3, and that's why they're overriding their trails. But in the actual game, all right, Safari, back home at Safari has been, the instance is now, he was 143, I think, is now gone because he killed his instance because it was over. And that's what all of these things are doing. But anyways, these trails are just for me to reference what the heck's going on. And I didn't count on them overwriting each other because they're writing on the same map layer, but, whatever. And the little blue thing is I put collision on them because they will be able to collide with other vehicles, including the players. I haven't written anything about the collision yet. I still have to do testing on how the collision is going to work because all of these are instanced. Now, in the video description, I'm going to put another link to the video that I had to reference to make some of this stuff all work. He covers every single topic. It's like an hour and a half long video, but it's worth every minute because he starts, you can do this, and he does it, explains what it does, and then he says, but we can actually make it simpler by doing this, and he'll change a couple of things, explain everything, and then he'll go, and let's try this, and this, and it's perfect. It's a great video. The last video I put out, it was only out overnight. I started messing with it because it was about this stuff, and the entire thing broke. The tweening broke. Everything broke. I quickly made it private, walked away from Godot, said, F this. I'm done with Godot. Done with the bad documentation. Done with the shit tutorials. Done. And then I went to Defold and was learning Lua, and that's okay. But there, like, this is an array, ID path. And you can have dictionaries, and you have match statements here. In Lua, you have tables. That's it. You can, if you want to make a record, you have to do it out of a table. I was able to figure out the stuff I needed for that, but then I started thinking, man, I got to make a tile map editor. I have to figure out A-star movement. I have to do this and this and this. And I'm like, God, I came back to Godot. But each of these, so this town sprite is an instance. So it is a single town sprite right here. And it's an area 2D. It has this collision shape. Just the sprite facing that way for no particular reason. 3 lights, and those are headlights, taillights, and this is just, it's here light. and it has a timer for movement. So what this does, I figured out after testing over and over and over again, while in theory you can have an A-star grid 2D, the whole grid outside of the instance, making that work, making anything work outside of an instance is a chore. And involves I tried using signals over and over. The video that I'm going to reference does use custom signals to make this communication happen outside of a scene to the main scene. I couldn't make it work. Too many steps. I get confused easily with too many steps, and then I screw everything up because I don't use versioning, and that's bad on me. But I end up using get tree, call group, and then tile map. Don't move. So I call the group tile map, which happens to be tile map. And then I call the function I want out of tile map, which is a custom function I had to write in tile map for this. And then I input the parameters I want that for this function. I should actually call it's a procedure, since it doesn't return the variable back in here. It places the variable in my global variables, which is my, autoload. I have a single autoload that's just called global vars, and the thing's freaking huge and it's full of junk that doesn't exist anymore. But these are the variables I'm using to make this move on its own and know where it is, know where it has to go, and all of that. So it has to. For me, I needed to know, what's the name of the town you started from, so I can put that data down here. So start name, end name, your convoy start, and all nodes, if you move them around, are vector 2i's. Vector 2i's are simply coordinates. So I gave convoy start vector 2i and vector 2i. Those vector 2i's is the town in the town's class of where it is. And I have a scratch variable for sending data back and forth, and use cells by ID, which is some kind of weird array that I just didn't want to classify what it was. That's a great thing about Godot. If you have this, Godot doesn't care what you put in it. So if we go back to tile map, which is right here, tile map. This is the group. Node is in this group, so I just wrote tile map here, added it, and now I can call tile map, which is in the main tree from nope, wrong one, from here. The thing that's being instanced. This is the spawner that is going to instance it, but we'll go back to that. That's all in the video I'm referencing. I'm still working on how to start this whole thing. For now, I just have, because the minute it's instanced, it runs the ready. It happens to run this twice. The first time it runs is when when I hit F5 to run the program. It runs through this. It runs through every single one of these. And then the next time it runs through is when it's instanced, and then it runs the ready. So I just have it make the grid for this particular instance. And using get tree call group, I can call out to the tile map, and I need the function get use cells. Why do I need that? Oh yeah, get use cells gets all the cells by ID. So this would be the layer, and this would be the cell. In this case, I need water, which is 0. So layer 0 is the tile map. 0 is the water cell. So then tile map, these are the functions I had to make to verify those get tree calls, because they're very simple. So get use cells, it requires the layer and the cell. And then global vars, it's taking the information that's being passed from the instance in, processing what needs to be done, and then the result is being shoved into global vars use cells by ID, which is alphabetical right here, use cells by ID. And then we go back to since all of this is basically running procedurally. No, not the spawner, the sprite. I immediately call var use cells equals global vars use cells by ID. So I grab it from global before anything else can spawn and overwrite that and then stick it into a variable that this instance uses. So this make grid makes an A star 2D grid. And it uses everything I need. It needs information off the tile map, all kinds of information just to make the grid. And every single call I need to make, I just use get tree call group and make a function of what I need. Not the most efficient way to do it, but it works for me. Then to make everything run right down the middle of the cell, since these are 32 by 32 cells, I set the offset to 32 by 32, 32, comma 32 divided by 2. That sets the sprite right in the middle of the cell. Then update the grid. So in theory, all of this can be out here, but it doesn't work that way. And that's because I can't make this. This is an object that I'm spawning a new version of. I can't make this talk to that out here. Only in here. I can only make it talk in here. I can't reach out, apparently, to something that is spawned here. If I can, fuck off. If I know how. So it makes its own grid of the tile map. Well, that didn't work out the way I was expecting it to. It makes its own grid of this tile map. But the grid then, because all the cells, oh God, where am I? So it has its grid, and then I immediately just find path, global vars, convoy start, convoy end. I can actually change that now to here. Because I'm snatching them, from the global vars, so they don't get overwritten for the next thing that wants to appear. Oh, these are strings. Okay. This is why every time I change something, I test it. Because usually I'll screw it up. Now it should work. Because this was trying to act on a name, a string, when it needed a vector 2 or vector 2i. Just verify this works. Wow. Wow, that's a lot of red. Is there any green? Okay, so the lights are red means you're not welcome there. White means they don't care. And green means you're welcome. I'm working on code that can turn city names and lights off, which is going to be a piece of cake now. Everything's red. Why is everything... Oh, there's a green one. Okay. But there's no convoys. Okay, bilge water. All right, it's working. So bilge water is doing something just somewhere. All right, there's a trail. Okay, so it's all working. So this finds the path. So ID path and point path. And then This for ID and path sets the tile that I'm using for the path. I could use line 2D, I guess, but I don't know. This just works because it's temporary. And then it calls follow path. Now, follow path does something interesting. This function input event is when I right click, when the character right clicks on this map, this moves. So I basically took the code from that and then modified it, but for some reason I'm keeping all this in there when it does not apply to this instance. So usually I got backup-itis, and so a lot of my grayed out code is because that's actual code and not a comment, is because I want to know what I did to do that or what I have to do that, because I'll screw something up and I have to reference it back. And I've had to do that multiple times. So what happens on the follow path is we set a timer to a value, which is speed, which is an actual global value in this instance, which is 0.5. And then when that is over, it calls a signal called, timer move. Town convoy is destination reached. Timer move on timeout call, it runs this right here, which creates a tween. I'm not using, well, technically I am using physics to move. I am using tweens to move. This is also one of the things that completely fell apart in the old video, because I decided to stop the character for a certain amount of time and then have them move again. And while the code was moving the character wasn't moving at all. Again, fuck you, Godot. I'm done. But what it does is it starts the tween, gets current point position, and then it follows the path. But to make the path, I have to do the get tree call group tile map erase cell, map to local, erase cell, local to map, erase cell. The tile move, then I'm moving with tweens. I can't get this thing to work correctly. It's a cheap way to do the look at for smooth rotation. That seems to break, so I'm just having them, do the instantaneous 90-degree look at, and that's fine. And essentially, it's just doing. This is cleaning up the path as they go over it. I don't have any set cells. Yeah, so they're just erasing the cells because they're on a separate layer from the main tile map layer. So there's no cell that has to be put back, like a road cell that was erased for their movement cell, because there's nothing underneath, which is freaking awesome. And since this is acting on itself, it's just tweening itself. I tried doing this specific to the Sprite 2D, which my old code in the old video I took offline was doing, but yeah, it just didn't want to work. And then if the path is over, so if next position less than path total size, so at the path total size or one away, I don't freaking know, it hits the else, which turns off the timer move. So it stops this timer, kills the tween, and emits the destination reached signal, which was created up here. Signal, I created signal destination reached. Now that is where the script is, and that showed up right here on Town Convoy Sprite GD, which is the name of the script. And so I had to connect it somewhere to make it work. I connected it over here and not in code. That's why there's no connect here in the code, I'm guessing. I think I tried connecting it in code and it wasn't working, or I couldn't figure out where to put it And so I just clicked over here and said connect to self. And so it emits the signal, which then on destination reached is right here. It matches whether it's at home or if it's not. So match home is true. What it does is it cleans up after itself. Because during the spawner, it takes a vehicle from the town, and I gave every town one vehicle to test this. So it takes that vehicle from the town. Since it's all random and it picks towns random for the convoy stuff, if it reaches that town, it picks that town again. It checks first if there is a vehicle available. If not, it simply exits out and continues on. So when it reaches home, again, after reaching its original destination, which is here, since home is default false when it leaves, if it reaches the destination, it prints reach destination, end of town, hides itself, so that's why it disappears. In theory, it's in town. It does, yeah, this is the timeout. It creates, it just creates a timer in code to wait there before it decides it's going back home. And that's when it shows itself. It finds the new path from the town it's in now, which is the end town, to the town it came from, which is the start town, sets home to true, because the next destination reach is going to hit when he finishes the path, and that will now match home. So in home, I just quick and dirty, I got to figure out where exactly their home is so I can give them their vehicle back, and then break out of the if, and then because this is, if it reaches it, the first town, I don't want it to go all the way through all 39 towns or 36 towns or whatever, because if we've already found the town and given its vehicle back, we'll just break out of it, which will put us back down here, and then I hide the vehicle again and I queue free, and that kills this instance. This is again just the absolute base of this. If we go back to the spawner code, which is in the main game loop, I actually made a game root for all of this. That code, I tried to make a dictionary. I tried to make them all in separate arrays, and then I figured out something else. This is the better random generator I'm using. I don't know anything about it other than it's an asset. I downloaded off the asset store, which is somewhere, asset library. You don't have to call random anymore, so I don't have to randomize all over the place. So this creates a town convoy. So when its number comes up, so to speak, it does this function. And this is, if I need to, this is, every convoy is in this array. So the convoy, again, I'm using global variables to send the information back and forth. So before it's actually added onto the tree and instantiated, I get all the information I need to put in global variables. Since this can only run one at a time, it's procedural. The instance, when it's actually started, and I can access it, and its code starts to run, we'll be able to snag these variables off the global stack before another instance is created and overwrites those. I had to fix an error in the instance script because where I was grabbing these was originally in the instance was in find path. that didn't work too well because by the time they needed to find their path back to the town, these were already overwritten by another instance. So confusion reigned for about 5 minutes as I sat and was like, that's not the town you came from. And this is where we instantiate it. First, we read it in up here. So it's reading this scene. So this was saved as scene, which is this scene. Oh, Lords. So it's reading that. It's just preloading it and reading that scene in. And then down here, after we get the variables we need into globals, we do, create this variable convoy as a temporary variable to instantiate the scene. So, where am I getting town convoy? Oh, town convoy is the name of the variable we're preloading the scene into. God, this gets confusing. Then we're putting it into this variable so we can append it to this array. And then, this is where things get a little weird. Arrays are 0-based, so we have to subtract 1 from size because size is 1-based. So I end up like convoy size. When you ask for the size and it's the very first thing you're putting into a 0-based array, it's going to say size 1. But the array's at array 0. So that was a headbanger. So I had to put a -1 so that if convoy size was 1, that means there was only one record, and that was at record 0. So 1 minus 1 is 0. So this add child worked correctly. I originally had it in here, I think. Hell, I don't remember, but this is how it works. That's why in Lua everything's 1-based, and that's what made all this simple. Godot, you got some shit that works on 0-base, some shit that works on 1-base, and they all combine together and then makes your head throb. This is other stuff that I decided not to do. Since this has control over all the instance that it creates, we can use tile map Oregon map to local. We can use map to local, which is a tile map thing, without having to do a get trees, get whatever thing, because this is able to use all of this. It's not locked into its own scene, this spawner. So that's why we can reposition the convoy to where, to convoy start, which you've already figured out up here. And that puts the convoy at the start position. And then we print convoy ready. And this is the no vehicles left in current town. And then I print out down here convoy ready, which just gets lost in the shuffle. All of this is crap I was trying to figure this out with. This video is getting too long as it is. The lights were the main thing that I wanted. Since I don't know how to, I have 3 lights, white, green, and red. It should only be 1 light, but again, with Godot, I have no freaking idea how to change the colors. Modulate, color doesn't work, self-modulate, color doesn't work, so I'm like, I spent a half an hour after getting all this written out, trying to put it into one thing, and then I just said, fuck, I'm going right back to what worked. Individual lights, so I'm currently separating them on to turn lights on and turn them off from the one big ass thing I had here on Make Town Lights. So this is all, I don't even know what that bottom thing is anymore. But what this does is the same thing that the other thing does. We load things in. Town's white preloads its own scene. Green preloads its own scene. Red preloads its own scene. And I have a label And that preloads its own scene. Because one thing I couldn't figure out, how the heck do you instantiate or load like a point light into an object? I can never figure it out, but this works. So then it does the same thing. It just instantiates each one of those, appends them I they're in an array, so I can access them through an array. This one matters because when I do the town lights off, it's going to iterate through everything in the array and queue free it. Because they're all independent instances. And then I hide them all, and I only turn on the one that's needed based on the town's stance. So there's basically, what is the town's stance? There's closed, that's red. Open is white. No, green. And wary is white. Crap, where was I? Lights controller. And then for the position, I had to get a little creative. And in towns, a while ago, I foresaw I was going to need this. I have town position X, town position Y. That gets map position, and I don't think I ever fill out the global position, but they're here. And so it's within this object. Is it an object? Yeah. It's simple to get where this instance is on the map when it's created, because I fill all this stuff in on creation of the town. No, the towns aren't instanced. That's right. They just are. They're tied. They're their own thing. They're not an actual physical thing on the map. A representation of them are, like this is a representation of a town, but the whole array, so to speak, of the town is only referenced to whatever cell it's involved with. It's too mind-boggling to think about. And what does this do? Oh yeah, this sets the label text. This identifies this square is this town and puts the town name there. And the T number is the number in the array of the town. And as the towns are created, what happens is I have the entire tile map. I go through the entire tile map, and I only pick up the tile number that is this, which I think is 12 or 14. No, it's 4. Close. Oh, Lords. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Okay, well, let's just turn the grid off. Oh, wrong grid. Okay. Anyways, it goes through... no, that doesn't work. That's better. First generation of sky and color. It's got to change. Old panels I pulled out of these things that I still haven't figured out what to do with. But I go through the entire map, line by line, and you get a place in the array. You get a place in the array. I think you are 1, and I think you're number 2. No, you're number 0. Either you're number 2 or you're number 2 or somebody's number 1. Anyways, and then it creates all these towns based on how many little things here. Since I can never figure out instancing, the towns were always going to be static, and they probably right now will be static, because I couldn't figure out if I can't place all like these lights and these labels as an instance, something I create at runtime, I can't randomize these things because I'll have to create, say, max 50 cities and then create 50 of these. 50 of the lights, 50 of the labels to put on those. And that's originally what I did. I don't think I have anything left over. No, I deleted all of it. These things were huge lists because originally every single light was placed manually on each of these towns, and they were completely separate objects. I had to reference them in code. I don't think I have any code left that has them. And just one whole 2-3 pages of what light was going to be on, what light was going to be off, because they were actually individual objects. Now they handle it on their own, which is freaking awesome. Instancing has been a huge game changer. I can actually show you how much of a nightmare it was. Where's this in the because the UI I haven't touched. That's in green too. These are all individual buttons. People button stats labels. These are all this is just people buttons right here. I got 20 buttons. They're all individuals. They all have the same script that basically does the exact same thing. And that's how it used to be with the lights and the labels, because I couldn't instance. I couldn't make copies. And it turns out that these copies are all independent of the other copies. So yeah, that brought me back to Godot. I'm so happy I found that out. Now the development continues from here. I got to work on the collisions, what happens between each cars. I got to figure out how to call from an instance to the other instance in a simple kind of way. Yeah, just an update. It's gone on way too long. If you're trying to figure out how this works, watch that 1.5-hour video, man. The guy is a great teacher. Everyone have a great day.